Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ninth episode of the Metanoia Effect. I'm joined today by Portia and Robert. And I am so excited to have this conversation today because we're going to be talking about being authentic and what that looks like and how we show up in the world, that by fully being our most genuine, authentic selves. So the first question I wanted to talk about was, can you remember a time when you did not speak your truth or were not fully yourself? What did that cost you, and what did that teach you? Portia, do you want to go first?
I can. And it's funny, Dawn. I was talking to Robert before we started the conversation today about something that I did this weekend. Robert, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this weekend I went to the orchestra, and the focus was on music that changed our world. And when we think about music that changed our world, you think of music that people still do covers of, right? Whether it's Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin, any of these artists that we know songs by. And one of the messages that stood out to me was about the importance of finding your voice, finding your footing. And so when I think about a time when I didn't speak my truth, when I didn't honor my own self, I felt pretty bad. I'll be really honest with you. I sat with myself and I'm like, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say that? What was wrong with me in that moment? For example, I remember different times when I worked in corporate, for example, and different experiences. For example, like one time actually in my TV career, I remember when they asked me about the role that I wanted to take. So those of you may or may not know, when I took my TV career, I got options as far as the roles that I could have taken. I could have been a producer. I could have been on, a reporter out on the field, or in-house talent as a fill-in. And I went the producer route because I was afraid that I wasn't good enough to be a reporter, even though I knew what the reporter role stood for. I knew what the job was, but I didn't feel like I was good enough. So I played it safe and took the producer route. Even though, don't get me wrong, that career took a pivot, as all of you know. I've talked about it before. But I remember if I would have said something like, I want to give this a shot. I want to try this, instead of just settling essentially, then I would have probably had a different outcome. But I just remember regretting it in my stomach. That feeling you get where you're like, oh, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I bring this up? So I don't regret it today. Don't get me wrong, I don't. But I know that it definitely cost me for a little bit of time. What about you, Robert?
Geez, pick a time. Pick a time. This happens so many times. I really just found this lane really in 2020. Like, I kind of kept myself in my own little gym bubble, just doing my thing, raising my kids. It really wasn't until all that madness in 2020 where I really started paying attention to other people and just how easily swayed other people are, and how people just quickly lost who they were in the blink of an eye, just over something that they saw on TV, or something that a friend told them. And I was like, I'm not buying into all that. Like, I have questions, like, I have questions. I'm not here to say yay or nay to the whole thing, but I'm just saying some things I had to step back and question. I think a lot of people lose themselves because they do not speak their truth, and they're not fully themselves because they're more concerned about fitting in and being liked, and they're worried about being judged. And I'm at the stage of my life where I could care less about any of that. Don't care. Like, now I'm going to say things. One of you is echoing. Dawn, I think it might be you.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't hear anything Portia said at all. So I don't know what's going on.
Oh, no. Not good.
I can hear you, but I can't hear Portia. So I almost think that maybe you guys should just do this episode without me today, only because I can't make it work.
Okay.
Well, no worries, Dawn. Be in the comments.
I'll just jump on the live and I will text in. I'll answer you guys there.
Okay, that works.
I'm so
All right.
sorry.
It's all right. Well,
So for me personally, I mean, again, this can go many different directions. Like not following my heart coming out of high school and going into the field that I wanted to go into instead of going into something that my dad wanted me to go into. And as a result of that, I ended up spending another 15 years in the restaurant industry because growing up, you're told if you don't have a degree, you can end up flipping burgers or pumping gas. And I let that become my reality until one day I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Like I just don't want to do this. Like, yeah, I might be good at it. I got promotions and all that other stuff, but it wasn't fulfilling me in there. And why? Because I wasn't living in my own purpose. It's like I'm here to help people, to push people, sometimes entertain people, but more importantly is to help people transform. It's like and I couldn't get that in the restaurant industry fully. I mean, like I can take someone who doesn't know how to cook and teach them to cook, someone who's never served and teach them to serve. So like, I could advance people, but not in this way on a much deeper and a much personal level. And what did that cost me? It didn't cost me anything because I am who I am because of all of those experiences. But what it would have cost me helping more people sooner. So that's how I answer that question.
Robert, I kind of laughed a little bit when you talked about the flipping burgers and pumping gas. I said, how many people still remember that? Because I remember back when I was in high school, flipping burgers was an option, but probably not the pumping gas part. Because I don't even think you see people even at gas stations unless they are looking for spare change to pump your gas now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And Robert, you brought up something I wanted to ask a follow-up question on. You talked about how we shrink ourselves because we want to fit in and we don't honor ourselves in that regard. I'm curious, what's your thoughts on you using discernment when it comes to not speaking your truth sometimes? What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is it going to be positive in that situation? Like is it going to add value to whatever the situation is? Because just because you have an opinion doesn't mean it always needs to be shared. It's one of the things, like let's take politics, something that's polarizing and people go from 0 to 100 regardless of what side you're on. It's like, so two people could be talking about something and I could totally disagree, but if I jump in, is that going to add value to the conversation or is it going to start a fight? So in that regard of like, you know what, just people are allowed to think what they think. They're allowed to believe what they want to believe and feel what they want to feel. So sometimes you don't have to share your opinion. If it's about advancing yourself, then I'm constantly telling people you have to be your number one advocate because nobody else is going to go to bat for you. If you feel like you deserve something, you got to speak up, whether it's a promotion, whether it's a raise, like no matter what it is, you have to advocate for yourself. And I tell that to my athletes all the time, where they'll come and say, "Oh, coach has me doing 4 events and I'm burnt out by the end of the track meet." I said, "Then you need to go speak to coach. Like I'm not speaking to coach for you. Like you
Right.
have to take responsibility and accountability and advocate for that result that you want. Like I can't do that for you." And a lot of people shrink themselves in those moments because they're afraid to ask the question because they fear the answer.
Yeah, or the rejection or any, because I remember I recently went into a situation like that where I needed clarification on a production, an upcoming one. And a part of me is like, okay, how is this entity going to respond to my questions? Because I understand the lingo and the whole production cycle. They're just starting out. But a part of me is like, okay, do I want to be that person to get clarity for my own good and also possibly teach them something, right? Because since they're new in the industry, they don't know all the stuff that I do. So I recently had a situation like that, Robert, and I went on ahead and asked the questions. I said, you know what? I'm glad, even though it was uncomfortable, right? I had to put myself out there, like, what are they going to think? I asked a few people for feedback, like, hey, what do you think about this email response? They're like, Portia, it sounds fine. Just go ahead. But I had to remind myself, like, nobody else going is going to give me the information that I need to make my life smoother or easier.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Let's move on to the next question. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Here we go. All right. So what changed in your life? You began allowing yourself to be more authentic and genuine. You want to go first or you want me to?
I can. I'd say the biggest thing was I saw people exit. So that was and I know a lot of people, they don't talk about that part when you start becoming the person who you've always wanted to be. Other people, you can't fit into their version of you anymore, right? They have this notion of who you were. For example, when my mom made her transition, a lot of things happened to me then. Obviously, I was grieving. I was sad. I had some good days, but still that heavy sadness and confusion lingered for a long time. And so there were some people that came into my life who became that support system. But once that season kind of dissipated, they've kind of went on their way, right? Because I'm not in that seat of the heavy grief anymore. It still lingers, but it's not the forefront of the entire frequency that I vibrate at now. The other thing I notice is I sleep a lot better too. Like I go to bed, I wake up in the morning, Robert, Dawn knows this. She calls me the queen of gratitude. I wake up in the morning and I say thank you for all the different things from the day before, whether it was a technology blip or my phone didn't work, I didn't get the phone call that I needed. It's all good. But then I also say thank you in the morning, in the night. Every night I say thank you because I'm grateful for any experience, whether it was something that taught me a lesson, right? Or something that was meant for me to see from a different angle. So I'd say that the best things for me is the different people that exited out of my life, me being able to sleep better, me also recognizing that I bring value to the table, because sometimes I feel like when we get so caught up in the different life experiences that aren't always favorable, that identity wears on us. Kind of like the pig pen example, Robert, from Charlie Brown. You know, we get caught, you know, we carry that. And sometimes it's hard for us to break out of that mindset. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to recover a little faster. And the tribe that I have today, the tribe of support that I have, that I know I can be me without filtering. I can go to them with the ugly cry, you know, the kind where the snot is so thick you can tow your own car, right? Or you can lasso it around a basketball hoop and bring it down. So those are the kind of things that really change for me. And even too, my love life, right? I've been solo 10 years before I met my person today. And so I think because of me stepping into who I am, I was able to attract what I wanted and still more.
Yeah, so one of my friends texted me the other day and was like, you know what I like best about you? So naturally, I'm cocky. So I was like, oh, is it because I'm so athletic? Is it these biceps? Like just being a smart ass, you know? And she's like, no, she's like, seriously though, your ability to turn any negative into a positive. She's like, it doesn't matter what it is, you find a silver lining. And when you're being yourself, you look at I should say, when you have a firm grasp on who you are, you look at the world differently. Like me, I'm a happy-go-lucky person. I'm not gonna let a little blip in the day ruin the rest of the day. Like I think I've said this on this show before. Like you wake up in the morning and you have a flat tire. People are, oh, well, this day's gone to hell. I'm like, you know what I mean? Take the 10 minutes, change the damn tire, and go on with your day. It's like why are you gonna let that consume the rest of your day? Excuse me. And again, I know everybody's different. Everybody views things differently. People respond differently. There's different personality types. So that's what works for me. You know, what works for someone else, you have to figure out what's your default programming. You know, what's your
Mm-hmm.
default programming? Because on my show, I ask people to tell me who they are at their core, and a lot of people cannot answer that question. A lot of people. So I had to start telling them ahead of time so they can have time to think about it before they respond when we live stream. You know, because I don't want to start the show with them going, great question. You know what I mean? And I'm talking, and these are grown people with businesses. They're successful. You know, their parents and grandparents. Like, and you haven't figured out who you are at your core yet. And a lot of times people overthink it because I can summarize mine in one word: competitor. Everything in my life is a challenge. It's a contest. And any setback that comes in, like I'll use this for example. My friend came to pick me up one day, and she was running a couple minutes late. And she came in, and she was all apologetic. I'm like, hey, listen, you being late could have stopped us from getting jackknifed at the stop sign. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you never know. Like, why does it have to be a bad thing? It could be a good reason why you were late. You know, the universe or whatever you believe in could have spared us from something terrible because you were 10 minutes late. And that's just how my mind works. It always goes to, all right, this is happening for some positive reason. You know, even watching my father transition, this happened for a reason. I experienced this so I can help other people who are grieving. You know, so I watched it firsthand. It's very easy to take the negative spin on things, but anything, no matter what, no matter how bad, some golden nuggets were left behind.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's almost, Robert, too, the extra mile is never crowded. It's easy to respond to a situation, as you mentioned, in a negative way. Oh, this whole day is ruined because, I mean, I shared a couple weeks ago about my experience where my dog bit the baby skunk. He gets sprayed in the mouth. The wildfires from Canada caused all this smoke to come here. So I couldn't open the windows and let the smell out of the skunk. So I had to take my dog upstairs, give him a bath, clean up the bathtub, clean up the kitchen to get the smell out. Mind you, it's in the middle of July, so it's 90 bajillion degrees outside. I live in a house that does not have AC. So, of course, I'm sweating like a whore in church. So, of course, I'm trying to get myself together because I had a conference to go to. I'm trying to get dressed. As I'm getting dressed, I'm sweating profusely. So I'm trying to keep myself from sweating out of my dress and get out the door on time because it takes me half an hour to get to the facility. And I got there. I mean, I probably could have been on the NASCAR track that day, Robert, getting to that facility because I was hauling it on that freeway. And I got there at 7:55 when the conference started at 8 a.m.
Wow.
And I just remember, again, the gratitude. The host of the conference comes up to the podium once I sit in my seat and says, we're going to start a little late today. You've got an extra 15, 20 minutes to grab coffee or drinks. And just the gratitude I had in that moment because my day started off. I mean, who wants their dog to bite a baby skunk and get that smell in your house? And It's terrible. And then I have a dog who likes to fight with me when I'm trying to give him a bath. So that's a whole nother conversation, right? But again, you take the lemons that you're given and make lemonade. And Robert, I'll be honest, it took me time to get to that point in my life, even through the grief that I've been through, you know, because for some people, that's why I open my arms up to people who are grieving, right? The gentleman at the vet visit, because so many people, they get consumed in that pig pen cloud for so long, for so many years, that they forget to live life. My cousin said it best. I ran into my cousin earlier today. He's the oldest cousin, I believe, in the family right now. I think he said he'll be 83 next month, I think. And he said so many people have built their coffin and they're already living in it, but yet they're not living and enjoying life.
Yeah. I think it was Les Brown, maybe, who said like there's people like in their 40s and 50s who have already died. They're just
Yep.
waiting till they're 80 to be buried,
Yep.
something along those lines. And it's true. Like you see it every day. Like just out and about, a lot of people are so miserable, and
Hmm.
a lot of it. I tell people first thing, like turn off the news. Like turn off the news. You know, it's like I don't agree with everything that Malcolm X has said and stood by, but one thing he did say, that the government's using the television to brainwash the public.
Right.
He said,
Television.
right? And that's exactly what's happening. It's like people hear something and just run with it without
Yep.
without searching. Like I'm always like, where's the rest of the video? Like I want to see everything that
It's the other side.
transpired. You know, and again, I know this is controversial in the world, but like when all that went down with George Floyd, like I didn't have an initial reaction because I was like, what led to that? Because something had to lead there, right? And then when you look at the video in its entirety, so obviously we know what happened. Like there's no undoing that, you know, and nobody does not deserve to die that way. But that was preventable. It was totally preventable. But again, that's a separate story for a different day. But the main point there was people reacted before they got the whole story.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the problem with the news. So when I find people who are kind of more on the negative side, typically they consume a lot of mainstream media.
Ooh.
And all of that stuff out there, you know, like it's bad when they have to have feel good sections. You know, so they're making people think that this world is just one big hellish place when there's a lot more good that takes place than bad, but it's the bad that sells.
Hmm. Yeah. If it bleeds, it
That's
leads.
what they run with. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's why, Robert, I had to get out. That's why I left, because it wasn't the type of storytelling and impact that I wanted to make in the world. Right. The one-sided storytellerships, that's what I call them, is you got to question it. Right. And I think you got to also put filters on with some of the stuff you hear, because now you got all these people on social media that are even taking their own spin on the original story. And we're not even going to get into that today. I'm not even going to get on that.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. It's even happening with sports journalists.
Yeah.
It's like some of these like, dude, we watch the games. It's like we see what's happening. You're trying to act like this either happened that didn't, or it did. I mean, or it didn't and it did. You know, it's like, but people will watch those little clips and then they're resharing and retweeting and all this other stuff. And it's like this is a doctored up image. It's like you have to ask questions. Like if you don't ask questions, you're just gonna blindly follow people right off the cliff.
We called it playing human microphone stand when I was in J school. So if the person who coined that, I won't say who you are, they are my Facebook friend. They know who they are.
All right, let's move on to the third.
Sure.
All right, how do we create relationships, communities, and conversations where people can be fully themselves without needing to agree on everything? So I'll go first.
Sure.
One thing that I've learned was in my I'm having trouble with one of the Facebook streams. All right, hold on a second. Let me just remove that. Remove. Oh, you're making me do all this? All right. Jump through too many hoops with that. But yeah, I'll go first on this one. Because like back in my 20s, maybe even early 30s, I'd fight tooth and nail to be right. Right? Tooth and nail. But then as I get older now, it's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Right. So now I definitely don't believe in pacifying people.
Right.
You know, but I've just come to accept that people have different opinions. And that's okay. Like you could love onions. I hate onions. We can still be friends. Right? There's people that are diehard NASCAR fans. I don't do NASCAR. But we can still be friends, you know, whether you vote left or right. That's your choice. We can still be friends. You know, the problem is people are just so worried about being right. where they're not listening to the other person's story. It's like, oh, well, why do you hate onions? Oh, well, I don't like the taste of it. It's kind of sour. It gives me heartburn. But like, just understand. But what? You don't like onions? Like you're the worst person in the world because you have a different opinion on something that you may love.
Mm-hmm.
And people have to understand that you're entitled to your thoughts. I'm entitled to my thoughts. Dawn's entitled to Dawn's thoughts, and everyone else is too. Like, just because you don't agree doesn't mean you have to fight. See, Dawn gets it. Dawn doesn't like onions either. And she said technology is not cooperating with us today.
Well, I think too, Robert, to add to the onions thing, I will only eat them on occasion. My great grandmother growing up, she had, those of you family members who are listening, y'all may remember Nanny's onion and pickle jar that was in the fridge. Yeah, she had an onion and pickle jar that she would eat throughout the day. Just straight cut onions and pickles. And sometimes the onions taste like pickles and vice versa. Robert.
But curling my stomach over here.
but to your point though, Robert, I think people are so polarized today. It's one or the other. Remember the debate about the Tylenol thing. People have a hard time accepting difference. For example, I know we brought up politics in the beginning a little bit. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, you vote based on your lifestyle is how I see it. That's always been my motto, is people vote based on their lifestyle. So yeah, whether you have an opinion about Trump, whether you have an opinion about Biden, whoever, at the end of the day, you're still entitled to vote based on your lifestyle. But we still should be able to have civil conversations about what we believe in, about why we support this person. And again, I think too, the other problem is people are just so, I hate to say it, they just not only want to be right, but they want to be the top of the hill for everything. Like they want to win the debate so bad that then they just start calling you all types of names. You don't understand this. But what happened to being able to agree to disagree? Like, for example, I am not a big fan of country music. There's some artists I like, but there's some artists that I'd rather hear a cat scratching at the wall before I listen to them. Right. And again, it's my right to not like that. Right. But then there's people, I think we just need to be able to agree to disagree, listen without wanting to respond immediately. Kind of that model of you listen without the anticipation to talk.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem where we become so consumed with, I'm ready with my response, instead of digesting what the other person says first. Like, for example, I cannot swim. We talked about that in the beginning, Robert, before we jumped on live, that I had on my life jacket yesterday when we were out on the boat because I cannot swim. So I don't care if that water only goes to my big toe. I'm going to wear a life jacket because I am not trying to take any risk. And again, that's just me. Now, for other people, hey, that's a different story. But I think, again, another reason for that is because I almost drowned as a kid several times. So that's another reason why I kind of have this weird like phobia with swimming. And so I think it goes back to we need to listen to each other, like legitly listen without the anticipation of talk and really digest what people are saying, because we all grow up differently, right? Robert, me and you both grew up very different in our households, in the dynamics, in the schools we went to. So I think that's where it starts. And also being open as a person, because there's going to be things that trigger you, right? I remember during one of my grief groups, one of the last ones that I, facilitated, there was a participant who said something that really did not sit right with me. And I had to remind myself, Portia, this is not about you. They are voicing what's on their heart. It's not a reflection of your facilitation skills. This is just them wanting more. They have an expectation that's not being met. So it's on both parties' ends to me, Robert, the person who's listening and the person who's receiving, to both be open and not quick to say, well, you're wrong, I'm right.
Yeah. Yeah, like I used to do, I think you met Kurt Powers.
Yes.
Yeah, so we did a debate show for a few episodes until I made him rage quit a couple of times. And so I'm sure he probably tells the story differently, but I totally made him rage quit a couple of times. But it was one of those things where we were on a pretty solid trajectory, like we wanted to show that you can have civil conversations without, to your point, calling names. Because I always say once you call names, the debate's over. You lost. Because you should be able to state your position without putting down the other person. So now me, I don't belong to any groups, no communities, no nothing. Because I don't do groupthink. I am me. I have my opinions. I say what I say. But for the sake of the show, I took the conservative side. He took the liberal side. And we would just talk about different topics, and we would just bounce off of each other going back and forth. Because there were some things that I agree with both sides. I would never, ever pigeonhole myself into one. Because if they do one thing, someone on that side does one thing, people think that's how you feel. Right? And so that's why I don't put my name on any of that stuff. But back to the question at hand, without needing to agree on everything, is by design. Just saying everything in this society, black versus white, men versus women, every other religion versus Christianity, like everything is one or the other. Like, and if you pick one, that means you hate the other. And that's not true in any case. Like, instead of, preaching men and women work together, they have men and women competing against each other. It's like that doesn't make any sense. It's like we were put on this earth with different body types, different builds, different skill sets to work together and build something beautiful. But there's no money in that. Going back to the news. Why do you think the news shows all the bad stuff? Because people are addicted to drama, right? And I've used this example before. If you go to the Super Bowl, the most watched sporting event, maybe, I don't know, I'm sure the World Cup is up there too, but in America anyway, the most watched sporting event. Now, the game could be on the line. If a fight breaks out in the stands, every camera in that place is going to zero in on the fight during the game, right? That's what's going to happen. That's how people are addicted. Like, every time Bill Burr actually said this first, Bill Burr, the comedian, where he was talking about, the pay gap in women's sports to men's sports. And he's like, I'm tired of listening to people asking these questions. He's like, and the guys have to play dumb because they don't want to give the answer and be called a misogynist, right? But he's like, they don't watch the games. He's like, there's more women on this earth. Why aren't women filling the WNBA arenas? Right? I mean, he's totally not wrong. He's like, but Real Housewives, ratings through the roof. The Kardashians, ratings through the roof. All these reality shows, right? Ratings through the roof. So it's like they're consuming the drama, but then blaming men for why women make less in sports, like when they're not even supporting the sport. I know that was a little off topic there. But.
No, but it does still fit, Robert, because the big question is, where is the priority? Right? Is the priority going to be on togetherness or division?
Yeah.
Right? What's the overall agenda? Right? I remember, like I said, when I worked in news, the motto was, if it bleeds, it leads. And unfortunately, that is still the motto with a lot of different entities. Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Because togetherness doesn't bring people, that's not the motto. That doesn't make money. Where drama, and more drama keeps the funnel going. It irks my nerves on social media when I see, for example, people taking videos of people fighting in Walmart. It breaks my heart. Like, I have to scroll past it because it makes my stomach hurt to see it. Because I'm like, all of you bystanders who are standing around taking videos of literally somebody getting bashed in the face, instead of you taking away the phone, taking away, pulling the people apart, like back in the day when we were in school, if a fight broke out. Right? Everybody's so quick to want to get the latest video of what transpired instead of pulling these two people apart, making it right, turning off social media. You know, it's like the attention deficit has to continue to be filled every day because there's a gap. But the real gap is putting kindness first. And that's where we've lost that. Kindness and respect.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Divide and conquer.
Again, it just goes back to who were you at your core?
Yeah.
You know, who were you at your core? And once people define that, like it's not your race, it's not your sex or your sexuality, it's not your religion, it's not any of that, because all of that stuff you had to learn along the way.
Right.
So when you were born, let's say 0 to say probably 8, because I don't think I remember much past 8, you know. But all that other stuff you were taught, but you were doing things like you had your default programming.
Right.
Somewhere along the way, and it starts with your parents because they want to raise you the way they were raised. You know, so maybe they, you know, kind of knocked you off of your path. Like I'm dealing with that with my kids now. Now everything in their life is my fault. You know what I mean? But it's like you just lose who you are, like who you were truly meant to be. Like the first keynote speech I gave, that was the title, Becoming Who You Were Meant to Be. And there were 3 people. There was, I don't know, a little over 100 people there. But these 3 people came up to me afterwards in tears. Like they were in tears. The thing was a couple, a man and woman couple, and then I think it was the woman's sister. But all 3 of them, they were like, you totally like spoke right to my soul. And it's like, it's one of those things. It's a feeling that you can't describe. I mean, I know you work with people too, so I'm sure you felt that. It's like when people get it, it just lights you. You know, there's nothing. There's no better feeling than watching someone who's struggling, and then they finally get it. You know, and then they start taking the steps to better themselves and to help other people. And we'll throw it back to you for the final word.
Well, and I think too, Robert, them feeling safe enough to share that with you, because there's so many people who are afraid of admitting that they've struggled, that they've lost someone significant in their life, a pet too that played a big role in their life. They're afraid. And so when I hear stories like this of people coming up to you, letting you know how much your speech impacted them, that it was the right word that they needed at that time. I had a moment like that earlier this year. I was frustrated with my business. I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I'm watching everybody on social media and just the comparison boat, right? That some of us fall in from time to time. And one of my mentors invited me out with her to an event. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew who the keynote speaker was. And even though the keynote speech was not for me, it was for me that day. The keynote speaker said these words: you are going to shine. So if you're listening, you know who you are. We're Facebook friends. But she said, you are going to shine. It doesn't matter what your circumstance is. You have been put on this earth for a reason, and you are going to shine. And that's what I need to hear that day.
I love it. And I just want to piggyback on that, and then we'll end. Is with my athletes now, I built a program called Built for Pressure, right? To help prepare them for, you know, the fourth quarter in basketball, the score's tied and you got to shoot 2 free throws, right? That's pressure, you know, or doing a penalty kick in soccer, you know, and the game is on the line. those moments in the high jump, attempting a new personal best or going after the school record. There's a certain level of pressure. So now when the athletes come here to the gym, first thing I say, what are you training for? And the correct answer is only one word: greatness.
Mm.
Greatness. So that's how we start each session. If they're doing something to where they're struggling, say like they're holding a long plank or something, and I'm like, what are you training for? And like, greatness. I can hang on, but that one word can just summarize everything. Just like you hearing, you are going to shine. Like things like that just hit and it sticks with people so much. But yeah, so I guess it's time for us to go.
Yes, everybody, that concludes this conversation on the Metanoia Effect. Join me, Robert, and Dawn again next week, and we'll see you then. Peace and hair grease, everyone.
Peace and hair grease.